A murder charge filed against the security guard working with a 9 News crew at a recent protest. If you think you're sick of taking pandemic precautions, imagine being a healthcare worker. Actually, no need to imagine. They're going to tell you right here. Our Let's Just Vote series continues as we look into an anti-abortion measure. It appears to be closer to passing than most in recent years. An Ironman without an Ironman race to compete in just makes its own. All the people survived the Jeep rolling down the mountain, but the dog was gone. Then days later, someone heard a woof. All that is next. Denver prosecutors have made their decision. The security guard accused of shooting and killing a man while working with the 9 News crew at a protest last weekend, he's going to face second-degree murder charges. Matthew Dolloff will be officially charged Monday. He was working for a security company under contract with 9 News at the time of that shooting that killed a man named Lee Keltner. Jason Whiteley is one of the reporters from our sister stations who's come to town to cover this story, which involves our station.
Right now, second-degree murder in Colorado is defined as someone who takes the life of another individual without any premeditation, without planning it. And second-degree murder is the charge that the Denver District Attorney, Beth McCann, said she will file against Matthew Dolloff early next week. McCann making that announcement about 3:15 this afternoon for the deadly shooting that happened last Saturday. Matthew Dolloff is the 30-year-old security guard contracted to 9 News to accompany journalists at those protests last weekend. Dolloff accused of shooting and killing a 49-year-old demonstrator named Lee Keltner, and it happened after a brief argument that lasted just seconds. Dolloff stepping in to stop Keltner from advancing on a 9 News producer who had been recording Keltner, who was in an argument with someone else. Well, Keltner backs off of Dolloff and sprays pepper spray towards him. And according to Helen Richardson's images here from the Denver Post, Dolloff already had his pistol drawn and had fired that one bullet through the fog of spray. So for a second-degree murder charge here in Colorado, legally, what will prosecutors have to prove in the case? It's a question that we asked Pete Schulte, a criminal defense attorney licensed to practice law here.
You know, the question is going to be, did the defendant make the decision to shoot the person before he knew that the bear spray or the pepper spray was going to be used? And that's what it's going to come down to. And if the judge believes that there's a viable self-defense claim, he's going to get the instruction where the government's going to have to disprove that it's not possible he was defending himself. And that's why he's not going to be guilty of murder. But right now, at these stages of the proceedings, no DA's office has to look at defenses before arresting or indicting.
DA Beth McCann said she will officially file the criminal charge of second-degree murder on Monday in Denver District Court. And the announcement of that charge is coming 6 days after that deadly shooting happened. For Next, I'm Jason Whiteley.
COVID fatigue. It's a real thing. And if we're feeling wary from months of pandemic planning, then precautions, imagine what it's like to be a healthcare worker, bracing now for a third wave of cases in Colorado. They shared their message for the rest of us with our Anusha Roy.
The third wave of cases isn't unexpected, but certainly unwelcome.
We have been preparing for this since the first wave.
This time around, our healthcare workers are prepared with more knowledge about the virus.
Gotten better as clinicians in the care of our COVID-19 patients as well.
That includes treatments that mean doctors don't have to turn to using ventilators as soon or at all in some cases. With that said, though, hospitals are watching case numbers extremely closely.
Taking into consideration when they need to potentially reactivate or increase the frequency of their incident command teams, and also looking at their inventory, so reviewing what those look like for PPE, which is personal protective equipment, looking at the medications, and then also beginning to look at their staffing levels.
Let's talk about staffing.
When you talk to the nurses, and really not just nurses, that's not even fair. All healthcare providers, I speak with physicians and we're speaking with anyone who's involved. there is a real sense of fatigue.
Ingrid Johnson is with the Colorado Center for Nursing Excellence and said despite everything that's happened this year, people still want to join the front line.
We are hearing from all the schools around the state that, in fact, nursing applications for nursing schools are up.
Some healthcare workers are not around their families when caring for COVID patients out of safety. Others have strict protocols at home, but then see people not wearing masks.
It hits, I think, the healthcare community very hard, because I guarantee when people that show up and go out in public and refuse to wear a mask get sick, they will expect us to take care of them, and we will. So I do wonder where that community, let's take care of each other, comes in. Where does it fit? Where's our responsibility?
So when it comes to the PPE stock, the Colorado Hospital Association said the hospitals they're in touch with have been able to preserve their PPE. They never really stopped doing that at any point. Some have even actually gotten ahead on their stockpile. But they also said at the same time that supply chain is unreliable. And part of that, Kyle, is because COVID hotspots have been moving around the country, and then the PPE supply ends up following that as well. And then you see that trickle down effect in Colorado.
We know, Anusha, from, say, looking at the White House, that testing alone is not a strategy for not getting the virus if you're not doing the other things. But the state did have a message about testing.
Yeah, today, again, they were really trying to hammer that point home that if you have symptoms, if you think you've got symptoms of COVID-19, you do need to get tested. But that alone does not work, right? We were talked a lot about wearing your mask, your social distancing, avoiding large gatherings. All of this is working together as a complete package. And Kyle, actually, the other thing we heard from healthcare workers today was that sometimes a simple thank you can go a really long way for them. We saw so much support in the beginning of the pandemic, kind of dwindled off over the last couple of months. So could be a nice touch to be considered.
It's a good idea. All right, we're going to mark it down. We're going to bring back that nightly shout-out segment that we had for a while there where people were giving specific thanks to folks who are keeping our state running. Pencil it in. Anusha, thank you for that. Our weekly average for hospitalizations for COVID-19 in Colorado is being pulled up toward the 300 patient a day mark in terms of the weekly average. We have not seen that level since the initial wave of the virus was tapering down. It was 329 patients in Colorado yesterday. Number's been climbing since mid-September. Our positivity rate today was 4.43%. That's just shy of our 7-day moving average. So that's good. I mean, we'd love to see it stabilize and fall rather than reaching the 5% mark that really concerns public health experts. When it comes to politics, you know, we don't have to agree, but let's just vote. And you are. Coloradans apparently love voting like we love green chili, great hikes, and hoping that every random quarterback that comes along will be the second coming of number 7. The earliest ballot return total show that Coloradans are turning in ballots at 24 times the rate of the last presidential election year in 2016. When I saw it, I looked twice, so I'll say it twice. 24 times the rate. Magellan Strategies, which does a lot of work polling for Republicans, says that Democrats have turned in more than double the number of ballots as Republicans. Again, they don't know how you voted. They just know if it comes back and you're a registered Democrat or registered Republican. Magellan says this is Democrats proving that they are confident in voting by mail as the president attacks that method. And Magellan said that every day that the gap is so enormous, it's obviously bad news for Republicans. So there are a few measures on the ballot that are designed to drive up conservative turnout this year. And our recent polling suggests that Proposition 115 to limit abortion rights could pass, unlike a number of other anti-abortion measures in Colorado in recent years. So we're doing this every night. Get your ballot ready. We're going through this item by item. Tonight, politics guy Marshall Zellinger outlines the arguments for and against 115.
Proposition 115. This is the ballot issue dealing with abortion. A yes vote prohibits abortions after 22 weeks. An exception if an abortion after 22 weeks would immediately save the life of the pregnant woman. What's not an exception is if the abortion would be for psychological or emotional conditions. The physician performing the abortion after 22 weeks would be subject to a fine of $500 to $5,000, but no jail time. And there would be no crime for the woman receiving the abortion. A no vote does not change current law. An abortion abortion would be legal at any point in the pregnancy. How often are pregnancies aborted after 22 weeks? The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment keeps abortion statistics based on what's reported to the state. Though the manager of the Vital Statistics program told me, quote, "We do acknowledge reporting of abortions in Colorado may be incomplete, evidence potentially in the 2019 numbers for abortions at 22 or more weeks." Last year, there were nearly 9,000 reported abortions. 136 were reported to CDPHE after 22 weeks. That was 1.5%. In 2018, out of nearly 9,000 reported abortions, 289, 3.2%, took place 22 weeks or later. And in 2017, out of almost 8,900 reported abortions, 260, or 2.9%, were after 22 weeks. Currently, 43 states have limits on abortions after a certain point of the pregnancy. Colorado is one of 7 states without limits, joining Alaska, Oregon, New Mexico, New Jersey, Vermont, and New Hampshire. Those who want you to vote yes to prohibit abortions after 22 weeks say the fetus can live outside of the womb at that age or later. Those who want you to vote no say it has no exception for rape or incest or risk to the woman's health that is not immediate or a serious fetal abnormality. 3 times in the last 12 years, Kyle, Colorado voters have rejected defining a fetus as a person, which has been a completely different question than what voters are facing today. A restriction of abortion at a certain time.
Yeah, this is a much more tailored restriction in terms of its impact. But striking to note, Marshall, that this one appears to have significantly more support, at least in the polling that we did, than those previous anti-abortion measures that got run out of the barn by immense margins, like 30, 40%.
But what you showed in the number of ballots returned so far, if people's leanings, Democrat and unaffiliated that identify as Democrat, if that holds true, we may see similar results anyway.
All right, Marshall Zellinger, thank you. They survived their Jeep rolling off a mountainside, though their dog was gone. Would you watch if I promise you the story has a happy ending? Because it does. And an Ironman so dedicated to Iron Manning that he made his own when his races were canceled. It's the most Colorado thing we saw today, and it's next.
Have a cool off today, a little less wind, but still plenty of smoke out there. Our view across Cheeseman Park overlooking downtown Denver. As we head toward tomorrow, winds kick up, air quality alert in place once again for the mountains and into the metro area. Tonight, as our skies clear, temperatures fall. We'll be in the 20s and 30s, and that means a freeze warning here in Denver and then off to the eastern plains as temperatures could fall into the mid-20s overnight. High pressure around, that keeps us dry. Storm system up to our north keeps the rain and snow up there, but it will be a windy one as we look at high fire danger with red flag warnings going in the northern mountains tomorrow. Temperatures seasonal in the 60s here in the city. Will warm even more for the start of the weekend. Isolated showers Sunday with a better shot coming your way on Thursday.
The most Colorado thing we saw today is an athlete holding his own Ironman. 19-year-old Connor Hodis is a student at CSU. He'd been training for almost a year to do a couple of Ironmans this year. Each one was canceled due to the pandemic. Well, Connor wasn't about to let that training go to waste, so he put together his own solo Ironman. 2.4-mile swim in Horsetooth Reservoir, 112-mile bike route around Larimer County, and a 26.22-mile run around Fort Collins. He wasn't exactly alone. His dad and a friend biked portions of it with him, and his family and friends set up check-in stations to cheer him along the way and at the finish.
But around 50 miles on this ride, I was feeling really tired and I was just low on motivation already. And I just knew I had so much more to go. So it was a little bit harder for me to push myself. And then once I got to that mile 60 aid station and I was able to cool off and see my friends and family there, it really kind of gave me a second wind. And from there, I was just able to push through the bike. It just didn't feel real because I've just been training so hard for this. And just those last 4 miles, when I really realized that I was actually going to do it and actually going to finish it, it was just really hard for me to focus on anything else, even though I still had, 30 or 40 minutes left. All I could think about was that finish line.
Connor finished in first place, just more than 11 hours and 41 minutes. One of his planned Ironman competitions got pushed to next year. He told us he's not sure if he's going to follow through and do that or might opt out for something else like an ultramarathon instead. I am told that all dogs go to heaven. This one was in no hurry to get there.
Dog was super happy to see everybody. He was jumping on everybody, giving everybody kisses. He seemed, really, really good for being out for 3 days.
A survival story from the wilds of southwestern Colorado. Next. There's this mountain pass near Telluride that claims its fair share of vehicles every year. A couple survived a rollover crash there recently, but their dog, who was in the Jeep with them on Black Bear Pass, couldn't be found after the crash. Then some days later, hikers heard barking. Our Brian Wendland has the story.
This is the Jeep that rolled down several switchbacks from Black Bear Pass onto Bridalveil Road in Telluride over the weekend. San Miguel County Sheriff's Deputy Chris White says the people in the crash are lucky to be alive.
Extremely fortunate, especially the young lady, to have survived.
2 dogs were also in the car. A bystander found one of them safe, but the other, Decker, was nowhere to be seen.
I'm guessing Decker was just far enough out of earshot that he didn't hear me.
Days went by. Decker's human was in the hospital, and her family came out to be with her and help look for the dog.
So we were hiking the, what was the name
Bridalveil Falls up to the powerhouse.
Jordan Gardner and Brittany Plavin were hiking in Telluride when they ran into the injured woman's father. He told them what happened, and they said they'd keep an eye and an ear out for him.
When we were walking down, we heard barking.
Kind of like stressed out, sad barking.
Jordan looked through binoculars and eventually spotted something in an avalanche chute high up off the trail.
So I really just zeroed in on that spot. Then it clearly moved and turned to the side, and there was a really good side profile view of a black dog.
They called search and rescue, kept eyes on Decker, and Jordan helped guide a deputy to the dog.
Then Decker started to slowly, kind of tentatively walk his way back over, and then get closer and closer, started to wag his tail a bunch, then just bounded over.
Decker's reunion with his family was full of jumping and kisses.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
There was just so much emotion. There were lots of tears. Everyone was just elated.
The woman injured in the crash is still in the hospital, and Deputy White thinks Decker's rescue could have a good impact on her recovery.
That's going to help her morale and her health in general, I hope.
For Next, I'm Brian Wendland.
Don't doubt it a bit. Deputy White says the San Miguel Sheriff's Office does a few of those technical rescues down the side of the passes every summer. He says thankfully most of their crashes stay on the roads. Hey, no excuses for not voting. We're going to meet a woman who demolishes any excuse that a Coloradan would have for not casting a ballot. That and your feedback next. Voting seems an especially emotional experience for Coloradans this year, understandably so. These are important times. And Andrea told us she got choked up watching her 88-year-old mother drop off her ballot recently. Her mom, Rose, has been recovering from a heart attack last month. That's why she decided that she would pass up her usual in-person voting and drop off the ballot. Her mom shared the photo in the hopes that it would inspire others to persevere through whatever obstacle might stand between them and being counted. Kyle Ebner writes in tonight, my favorite Zoom background to use is Kyle's basement. Every meeting, somebody goes, hey man, Kyle Clark's basement. Thanks for getting me props, bro. If you too would like props, bro, we will put that Zoom background on our social media pages now. Maybe the bosses will let us use it here for props, bro.